How did you become a nurse?
I had I had a couple of very good female influences, which I'm very happy to report, seeing how this is a female masterclass. So when I was young, I had an aunt who was a surgeon, a doctor, and a missionary nun who worked in Africa for 40 years. And she was such an amazing person. She was funny and a great raconteur. She built up a hospital and an entire community healthcare system in Africa. And when she came home, she told these amazing stories. She wasn't a very pious woman. She was just funny, and she was adventurous and had loads of courage. And I also had actually another aunt who was a midwife during the Troubles, a district midwife in Belfast. So those two women, I think, they kind of shaped my idea that I would become a nurse. And I had this idea that it was kind of a naive idealism. I'll go to Africa. And that's why I became a nurse, I think, so that I could go to Africa, which I did do. And then, of course, my father, who came from a family of 9 in the country, who was, he loved the land. There wasn't a field or a mountain or the sea that he wouldn't look at. So he had me scarpering over mountains at a very young age. So I had his influence, and I had these two women. So that kind of shaped my whole in kind of, number one, being out in the outdoors, but the whole idea of nursing as a profession, as something that's really good to do. And I still think it's a great profession. So that kind of, they got me. And I did, within 1 year, I was in Africa. I was there for 2 years. So I was also very impulsive, and I'd just get an idea and I was gone. So they really shaped that kind of imagination. My adventurous imagination started there.
Yeah. And did you plan to stay in Africa?
Yeah, well, I was with a voluntary organization. So I was there for 2.5 years. And also it was kind of, I suppose it was wilderness medicine, you know, where we're getting crocodile bites and hippo bites, believe it or not, and all of these tropical kind of diseases. It was very basic medicine. We had to use very basic equipment. So it kind of got me into that whole different way of thinking. I kind of always enjoyed the alternative route. So those couple of years in Africa, I worked with cholera, worked with AIDS patients. It definitely kind of tweaked me in a direction. It was a fantastic time, and the people were incredible. You know, they were very poor, but they sang and they danced. I don't mean to patronize them by saying that, but they were people who enjoyed what they could in a simple way. So that was an amazing experience, very formative.
Yeah, and then you came back to Ireland. Why did you come back to Ireland? Did you just miss the country? Did you miss the people, or did you have another calling?
It was the end of the contract. So after those 2.5 years, the contract was over. I was a volunteer. I also had absolutely no money. So then I decided I better go over to Saudi Arabia and make some money. So I went there and I worked for a princess. And I got lots of money. Well, enough money to buy a site in Louisburg, which is what I wanted. So I had a completely different experience over there, much more obviously repressive towards women, couldn't drive, you know, all of that kind of stuff. A lot of Irish nurses go there. So it wasn't really for the gold that I was there. I just wanted to buy the land in the west of Ireland eventually. So so that's where I ended up working for a princess. Princess Noura was her name.
Princess Noura.
Princess Noura. But believe it or not, I wasn't her nurse. I was her fitness instructor. So I kind of misrepresented myself ever so slightly and said I could be a fitness instructor. And I was over there in her little personal gym doing step aerobics and all of this kind of stuff. Great fun. Gilded cage, this little palace that I stayed in.
Was she restricted as well as a princess to certain behaviors?
Yeah, completely. And we lived in the central province called Kassim, where you had to cover your face. So when I went out, I could only go when I was driven by somebody, and I had to cover my face as well. And you can't even see very well through this gauzy black stuff. But they went to Europe a lot and they went to America a lot. Royals have that freedom, so they do travel, and then everything comes off, and they behave like normal, Europeans or whatever. But
Yeah.
yes, within the country, everybody is restricted, but not within the confines of the palace. It's a beautiful place, but as I said, gilded cage. You're there for a short time to make money, and interesting coming from the poverty of Africa to this opulent palace. It was a very strange time, but it was fine. It was a means to an end to get my land.
Yes. And you did.
Yeah,
And you did.
and I did. I
Yeah.
did traveled to lovely places while I was there, like Pakistan and India. So I had a great time. I was very lucky.
You came back to Ireland.
Yeah,
You got your land.
got
And
my
you
land.
started, yeah, and you started working as a nurse.
No, I decided I wanted to live in the west of Ireland, and the only way I could do that, there was no jobs in Castlebar, so I asked Delphi Adventure Centre if they wanted a cleaner or someone in the kitchen, and they said they would be happy to employ me as a nurse for the summer, for summer camp. So I went in there. I didn't know where to work. I didn't know, they didn't know what to do with me. So I set up in the gear shed, and then I became the nurse for Delphi. And then I stayed there for almost 2 decades. So that was a brilliant experience. I got to know a lot about the outdoors, about different sports. Well, I mean, I was there for 20 years almost. So working with the instructors, learning about all the different outdoor sports. Around that time, I started to get my wilderness qualifications. So all of my nursing started to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
I joined rescue. So I got very interested in wilderness medicine itself and looking after people in kind of remote areas. So mountain rescue kind of opened my eyes. So I was very lucky because I all of my job started to go in the direction that I had loved, which was the mountains and the hills and being outside. So I got to do all of that when I was in Delphi. So when I was in Delphi, I also worked part-time as a trainer. And then I eventually left in 2013 to be a full-time trainer. And then I went back to the hospital to do some part-time nursing to get back my skills. So that's what I do now. I do some nursing, and I do my wilderness training.
And yes, tell me a little bit, when we were talking yesterday, yeah, I asked you about your family life. Like, you are a wilderness medic, you run courses, you're a nurse, and you are in the mountain rescue team. How do you manage it, like all of it with family life? And then how did you manage like having kids? That must have been really hard.
Well, I think it's the same for everybody. I think all of us, men and women now, we're all juggling and twirling plates in the air. So I can't pretend I manage things as, easier than anybody else. I do carve out some time for myself. I was lucky. My ex-husband, Mark, who I'm still very close to, he was really good. So I tossed him the kids when I was heading all out. He's a surfer. He's Australian, and tossed me the kids when he was going for a surf. He's an outdoor person, so he understood. So yeah, we always had a very healthy, I suppose, with healthy attitude towards having kids and rearing kids, that we didn't have to be with them every minute of the day, and that we could have our sport and support that. So I was very lucky with that. To be honest, because all of the things I do, working as a medic on a race or on a movie or nursing, I love teaching, they're all things that are really, really interesting. So I have all this amazing variety. Very few people are as lucky as I am. It's taken a while to get to this place, and I have flexibility because I decide my own calendar because I work with an agency. So so I'm very, very lucky. But sometimes it does. I get tired. I take naps. Naps are very, very good things.
I do agree. I take naps.
Yeah, of course. Busy.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, when you were going for, to work or to work, meaning, hanging out of the helicopter, how did the kids feel like? Was that something that, it's a normal situation that, every mommy does it, like mommy's going to work and,
well, I was saying
she does.
Yeah, my kids aren't, they're not impressed with that, because as long as they've been around, that was something I was doing. And I think I was saying to you yesterday, I remember one particular afternoon, myself and my friend Mary Walsh found ourselves on a Tuesday afternoon being winched up into a helicopter, winched down onto a mountain, and I think it was a very quick exit for the patient. We sorted out the patient and off they went. And when I came back, my child had been playing Hannah with another kid, and the other child got interested when she heard me talking about helicopters, and she said, was your mom in a helicopter? And my kid said, yeah, she's always doing kind of things like that. She kind of dismissed it, so, it's just something that mothers do. They swing out of helicopters, they're middle-aged, on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, that's what every mommy does, isn't it? That's the norm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the kids get used to it, and they don't, like, they're really supportive, because sometimes I get great, I'll get a great proposition. Like a friend of mine, Mark, asked me, would I go to Machu Picchu with some people? And I go home and I ask my kids, guys, my two girls, can I go to Machu Picchu? And they go, yep. And then I'm gone, So, they're great. They kind of, they don't wonder anymore at the strange things and the strange places that I find myself. I think they're kind of secretly pleased, but they're teenage girls. They're not going to be praising me for doing anything like that. I hope one of them is somewhere. Hannah, are you there?
Marie, you just mentioned so many different jobs. How do you get them? That's really interesting. Like, how do you get to Machu Picchu? Then you mentioned a movie, working on a movie. How do you get the amazing jobs? How do you do it?
Yeah. You see, when you teach lots of a big variety of people. So as a wilderness trainer, I'm teaching a lot of guys, quite close relationships with a lot of people who I teach, organizations that I teach again and again, year after year. So you get to know people, and people they like to have a nurse on board if they have something going on. So people often ask me, I got a job touring with Americans in the summer, because I got to know a great man from Texas called Tim Cookingham, who invited me to go on tours with Americans. Mark, a very good friend of mine, asked me to go on tours in the Camino. So it's really through relationships. And then my mentor and dear friend, Joe Gorman, asked me to go down to Star Wars and work on that set. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know what I was going to. I thought I was going to work on some Irish Kiss Angel. And he said, come on, they need 3 wilderness medics. And I was really busy at the time. It was Reek Sunday, the day before. And I said, oh God, Joe, I'm not driving 6 hours. I didn't really know what it was. And then I realized, I didn't expect Star Wars. And of course, even then, I was never really a fan, so it didn't mean much to me. But I had 2 amazing years working on the Star Wars set when they were in Skellig. And to be honest, Skellig was exciting as a Star Wars thing, because it's such a beautiful place. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's just so stunning. So, and it was really interesting watching a big blockbuster movie being made, and asking some guy, what's your job? When you're going over in the boat, and he goes, lightsaber technician, meeting people whose job for the last 5 years was lightsaber technician, Yeah. So it was great. Yeah. Great experiences like that. Yeah. Very, very lucky. The one thing I always say to my girls, I have a habit of saying yes, even when I'm not sure, or if I'm not sure that I'm going to be up to scratch at doing something. I kind of impulsively say yes to everything, but it has really worked out. And I do say to my kids, just if something comes up, even if you're not too sure, just say yes, just and you made it where just try it. So bluff away into all sorts of things.
Yeah, I think it's a really good tip. Like, never regret the decision. Just take it and leave it, and just check what it is. Experience.
Yeah. I think people overthink a decision and will it be good enough and whatever. And I try not, I try not to think at all. Just go, just go headlong. So
Yeah.
it's worked. It's worked for me so far. So it's great.
Okay, question that I ask on every female masterclass. What is your biggest struggle, or was your biggest struggle in life, and the biggest difficulty? Just to let you know, Hannah is just tuning in. She's just, yeah.
I suppose like everybody, the death of people. When I was in Africa, my very good friend came to visit me there and got killed on the roads, just 15 minutes away from the mission hospital where I worked. I was out in Africa with my friend who had died and my other friends who were doctors trying to resuscitate her. So that was a shocking time, and the loss of my dad, who I took care of before he died. But I have to say I've been really, really lucky in life. Very, very lucky that things work out, and I've good positive attitude, and I can't really say that great big walls have been put in front of me. I've just been really, really fortunate, aside from the normal tragedies that people have. And I think if you work hard, going back to nursing after 2 decades was difficult because I ended up in A&E, which was really, really busy. And it was the kind of medicine that I wanted to be in, acute medicine. But you walk in and there were 20 trolleys on my first day back. I hadn't done drugs for 20 years. And I do want to talk about this because of my fellow nurses and my colleagues and friends in the A&E department. It's a massively hard job, nursing, and I don't feel nurses are supported in Ireland. It's a fantastic job, and when you can do it right and when you can give patients your time, there's no job like it. But in our conditions in Ireland, when we have an avalanche of patients coming in the door and you can't give them time, days are exhausting, and it's just chaos. It's chaos from the minute you go to work in an A&E department to when you're spat out the other end at the other side of the day. And it's fine for me because I go off to my courses and I go off to the outdoors, but the girls who are working there full time and the lads, very, very hard, and people are very demoralized in nursing in Ireland, which is an awful shame because they all love their jobs, but they just can't do it properly.
Yeah. Do you think that it's connected with generally that nursing is connected more with women, and maybe they're just underpaid and treated differently as workers?
Yeah, I do. I think if nursing is there are men, of course, and so I work with some lovely male nurses, but they're primarily women, and I think women as a group of humans, we don't ask enough for ourselves. And I think if nurses were primarily men, then I think we would have more money. I think we'd have better conditions. We went to such trouble just so that the patients would be taken care of, so we were striking, but all we were doing was making life harder for ourselves because it was just a smaller number trying to look after the patients that were there. So yeah, I do think women tend to accept less, and I think that's a problem in nursing. And so nursing has become a job that's so difficult, so poorly paid, despite the responsibility that nurses have. Massive responsibility. Given intravenous drugs which could be fatal to patients. We do all of these things and we're just not paid for it. So yeah, I feel strongly about that. I would love to see conditions for nurses improve in Ireland. I really would. Yeah, it's a big challenge.
Yeah. Especially now during the COVID times, as there is even more work and more difficult, confusing work. Maybe it is definitely confusing situation for people from outside of medicine. But I can imagine that it must be hard to treat COVID as well, to patients with COVID, and then treat normal patients, and the pay, it's still the same, I guess. Yeah, you came back to full-time nursing because of COVID, because of the pandemic. What is your
Yeah.
experience like? Would you like to, yeah, share with everybody about that? Because I think that's the #1 topic these days, or at the moment.
I
Yeah.
know. Everybody is yeah, it's hard to stop talking about bloody COVID. Yeah, I went back to full-time nursing, and I was lucky. I had an income, you know, like that's something. And you know, a lot of people were buying us pizzas and whatever, and eventually we were saying, you know, it's the food should go to people who are unemployed, because we were lucky in that way. But of course there was a risk, and there always is. And I ended up going from the regular ED to COVID ED. There is a created a second emergency department. So those the usual, everything that people have heard is true. The difficulty with the PPE, dozens of staff of my colleagues got sick in the hospital in the first few weeks, until we learned really how to look after ourselves better. Well, to be honest, I'm going to call out the hospital here. They didn't want us to wear masks, because they were saving the masks in the beginning. So everybody got sick. And I do want to make this point here for anybody listening. Masks do matter, 100%, because for the first month of COVID, we weren't wearing masks in the non-COVID wards, and a lot of the staff got sick. Whereas once we put on masks, that didn't happen anymore. But working in the COVID ward, the main challenge would be, and I know I was quite upset one evening coming home and Mark, my ex-husband, was very comforting, but you know, patients are elderly. I feel they were such victims, and they are still, of COVID. And they come into us, so we dress up in all of the stuff. The curtains are pulled, so you do everything you have to do for the patient. You're behind whether it's the riot police or the welder's mask or the goggles or whatever it is. You're trying to look after the patient. A lot of elderly people find it very hard to understand what you're saying behind your mask. You're trying to do the usual interaction and touch them or whatever. And the problem, these elderly people, then you close the curtain, because the idea is that you reduce your own viral load, so you don't spend any more than you do a patient. So you do everything you have to as the nurse. Then you send them for x-ray, the doctor will come, but the poor patient is left behind this curtain. And normally as nurses, we're always, you know, alighting at a patient's bed and touching them and saying, Michael, I'll be back to you in a minute, but you can't do that. And then they're taken away to the COVID ward or to ICU. Some of them will die, and their family can't come and see them. And the one thing that I know about old people from my own experience is that they don't care about material things. They don't care about traveling. All they want is family. And most of them aren't even afraid of dying, but they're afraid of dying alone. And so COVID has robbed old people of those two things, of just having family with them when they're very sick. And that is so lonely and so sad. So that was, you know, to me, the worst thing about it. I felt so sorry, so, you know, elderly people just being carted away up to the wards, and we wouldn't even know, because there was no movement in the hospital, what became of that old man or woman. Did they die in ICU? But their families, you know, people weren't even allowed to bring in extra pajamas or anything in the beginning. It's desperately sad. So that was the really sad thing about looking after COVID, and just not being able to touch your patient and you know,
comfort them,
comfort them and say, I mean, we did our best, but it's you know, it's horrible. And then if they went to the ward, they were left all day behind a curtain until somebody, nurse or doctor, had to go in and give them some kind of care. So that's very, very lonely for old people who are used to curtains being open, talking to each other. You know, someone drops over water to someone else. There's always a bit of banter in a ward. It's I don't think people, and especially young people who are out and about, I don't think they realize the hardship and the suffering that old people.
Yeah,
But
I
they,
hope we have today some young people. So I hope they're listening and they're learning, and I hope they really can take it deeply into their heart and just pass the information to their mates and parents as well. I'd, yeah, I think we have to say it that parents are responsible for the treatment as well and passing the information to their kids, especially
yeah,
now during the holidays.
yeah,
It's all really important, all really relevant. Um,
yeah.
I heard on the media that actually the second wave of COVID is actually happening now. What do you think about this idea? Are we gonna be hit even more in September, October with COVID, or is it
Well,
going to be lighter?
it's hard to know, but I do know the one good thing for us, which happened in COVID, was that people stopped coming to A&E. So we went from absolute daily chaos to lovely quiet A&E, which was, oh my God, a patient would come in and we'd fight over them, and there were beds upstairs, and that was a really nice thing that we could
Mm-hmm.
do. And now it's all changed and everybody's back. And people are back with pretty minor stuff, which they shouldn't be back with. But anyway, so now the A&Es are full again. And of course, the poor people who were genuinely with chronic diseases are all coming back, as they should be. And we would never have discouraged them from coming. So we will have that. And we still don't have infrastructure in Ireland to take care of the volume of people. So even if we get, which we will, because we're all moving around again now, like I'm in a hotel this 2 days, and there's people everywhere in Westport and Lewisburg where I live. So it's inevitable that we'll get more COVID. Now, maybe because Irish people have been amazing, I'm hoping that if people are sensible, and especially mask wearing, that's a big deal, as well as the hand washing. If people are sensible, we might keep it to a manageable. The funny thing is, Irish, we weren't even close. Even adding any extra patients like COVID patients is going to be a pretty intolerable burden. So yeah, you know, even if we don't get a surge, you know, I've been off for the last few days, and the hospital have been ringing me every day because you know, there aren't enough nurses. There aren't enough.
Yeah.
You know, our health system is so beleaguered. It's very hospital centric. Everybody goes to the hospital. And we really need a structure in the communities where people can be looked after in nursing homes and where they can be looked after in their own homes. And I know Paul Reid, the director of the HSE, is trying to do that. It'll take an awfully long time, but Australia does a good job with that. You know, have teams of doctors and nurses who are in the and who do all of those jobs, keeping people out, keeping
Yeah.
elderly people away from the hospital, keeping all of us away from the hospital. My kids never go to hospital, you know. They'll have to have, you know, a spade sticking out of their head before I bring them into A&E, including my mother as well. Just stay away. Stay away
Yes.
from the hospital.
Yeah. What do your work friends, colleagues think about you? You are a mountaineer. You work in the mountain rescue. You are very adventurous. What do you think they think of you?
Some of them are very, a lot of them are very envious. They go, oh my God. You know, some of them just are kind of impatient and go, you know, what is it that you do exactly? They can't quite get their head around it.
Yeah.
A lot of them would love the idea of the variety that I have. And I've brought some of them out on the hills and whatever. We've tried to create a little emergency department, you know, mountain group. But, you know, like there's a lot of people in there. They have busy lives. They work really hard. They have kids. Bemused is the word I would use.
Annie Rickard. I was wondering what Marie's experience of working in healthcare has influenced her understanding about being her time in the outdoors.
Yeah, I think, well, the one thing I've learned about working in healthcare is that, you know, your general health is really important, because I know I work 13-hour shifts, as does everybody, and sometimes they turn into 14-hour shifts. And the one thing I've learned, there are so many people my age, I'm 56, who are very unhealthy, who have diabetes type 2, heart disease at my age, high blood pressure, and the importance of being fit and healthy. And I know that I'm probably fitter and healthier than I was even in my 20s. So that kind of experience, being in the health world, also, if you work as a nurse, it just gives you confidence. You know, you're a very can-do kind. But I would love to encourage more nurses out into the world that I'm in, because it gives you a lot of energy and vitality for the job. But the problem is, I think a lot of nurses think, I don't have the energy to go up a mountain. But it works the opposite way around. If you're outdoors, you have energy to go back and work. So it's a kind of a funny thing there. But yeah, it's taught me an awful lot. I think you develop a lot of communication skills and courage working in a health environment, and working with patients, which absolutely translates to teaching, translates to being in the outdoor environment as well.
I would generally think that, Marie, you should start a mountaineering club for nurses or women in your area, and just, encourage them. You are the role model, and I think they will just follow you. I think they just have to know that they don't have to climb the highest mountain in Ireland straight away. They can take it easy, and
Well, this is mountaineer in Ireland, but I'm not a mountaineer, I'm a hiker. And that's the one thing I think women, and especially the women that I work with, think that it's, they think that I'm this massive mountaineer and I'm on Mont Blanc at the weekends. I'm just a hiker and not even a particularly good navigator. So people can enjoy, low level walking and all of that. So that's what I'd love to encourage, and make people realize that you don't scaling 12 bends just to enjoy a day out walking. And I have, I have gathered people in the outdoors at various times. There was a lovely doctor called Shahid, who's now in Cork, and myself and another friend called Shelley used to bring people out, but we've kind of disbanded, and with COVID and everything. But maybe after, I do, and people, I do, try and encourage and inspire people, but unfortunately, people kind of think, oh, that's just, or you're an adventurous person, I couldn't do that, that's not me. So I would love to somehow make people understand. So I think maybe when this is all over, I'll see if I can drag a few asses up the hills again.
That would be great. I think it comes to also visibility and getting the information. Like people have different kind of views on other people, and just think that they have to do big things straight away, but not really. And it can be such social and healing experience, just walking up the mountains, looking at the views. I think that's the most important part.
Well, Anna, because you're in this world, and I was saying to you yesterday, I was in Jerry Clare Horseshoe a couple of weeks ago with a good friend, and some lovely people from the Westport Hill Walking Club, and being on top of the 12 bends, it's just the most incredible feeling, with mountains everywhere and no sound. And as you say, an experience being on any kind of elevation, especially in Ireland. So even my own kids, Hannah's there somewhere. I'm dying to get her side up hills as well. But I have a footballer, and I haven't quite convinced my own family. So I'm not. Yeah, I'll keep trying. I'll keep trying, because it's amazing.
Yeah. I hope. People will be encouraged now to go out and walk. What's your future plans? Big things that you can talk about or not? I don't know.
Two things. My kids are still college, so I have to run around, and we have to make money and educate them. But when I think when they leave, and I'm not looking forward to my Hannah leaving. She's my second, and Rachel is my first. She's in college. When they go and they're in their own lives, I would like to work with Medicine Sans Frontier, Doctors Without Borders. They're a group of medical professionals who go to various hotspots. I would love to work with them maybe eventually. And I've written a novel. That's my other interest.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't tell you that, Anna. So I would love to get that published. I've finished it almost, and I'm kind of working on that at the moment. So yeah, you know, because we're creative people as well.
Yeah.
So if I'd love to just get a bit of, you know, if I could just stop working for a few months and just get things organized.
Yeah.
If anyone, you know, money they just want to send, and I could just stay at home.
Yeah. So I hope people are paying attention and listening here, and you know, we're gonna put your bank account at the bottom, and you know, you can help Marie to finish her novel. May I ask, yeah, what is the novel about? Or
it's crime fiction, nothing to do, absolutely zero to do with, but there is a nurse in it. Yes,
okay.
nothing to do with the outdoors, but it's set in Mayo because I'm tired of crime being set in the underbelly of cities. So you know, this is not the gritty city. It's more of a country, a culture now. So
that's good. Yeah, that's great.
My other interest is reading. I love reading. Yeah, I'll be a really avid reader all my life, you know, which is a handy thing if you're outdoors as well. You can, you know, take a few hours.
Relax even more.
Yeah.
There is a question from Rachel Kirinan. Anyone advice for someone joining mountain rescue, and what the toughest challenge being in mountain rescue?
Okay, I would say mountain rescue, the one requirement, it depends on the team. If you're Dublin Wicklow, they're quite specific. They want you to have mountain skills course done. They want you to have remote emergency care course, first aid, which is what I teach. They want various things. Mayo team, we are very undemanding. The only thing, two things we require is that you're a hill walker and that you have some availability, because you can't join a mountain rescue team and not be available for call-outs. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be off every day of the week, but that you're regularly able to attend call-outs. And really, you have to be a hill walker. If you've never been on a hill, there is no point in asking to join a mountain rescue team. So they're all hill walkers. But I mean, anybody who wants to start hill walking, you join a hill walking group, and they have every level. And there are hill walking groups all over Ireland. So, and you know, the greatest challenge, I think, is just keeping fit, because we carry a lot of stuff in a mountain rescue team. It's not working with the patients, fantastic. You know, it's such a lovely thing. People are cold and hurt, and you go and you feed and water them and you shelter them, and you know, the bit of banter, we get them off the hill. It's such an amazing thing to do. So none of that is a challenge. The main challenge is just keeping strong enough so that, you know, you're able to do that. You're able to put a pack on your back. But once again, you don't have to be super fit. You know, people think you have to be some machine to be in mountain rescue. Not at all, you know, but you have to be able to climb a mountain with a pack on your back. That's it.
Yeah.
If you can do that and you can hit your hill, you're off. In the Mayo team, we will train you in all of the things that you need: search and rescue and navigation, mountain skills, all of that. So yeah, it's an amazing experience, and people are amazing in mountain rescue teams. They really are.
Yeah. Do you train yourself? Do you have like a training routine that you follow like every day or every week or on weekly basis?
Well, look, at the end of the day, I'm a middle-aged woman doing my best. So I drag my backside around the area, the countryside, on a few jogs. I do some stuff with my kids, you know, the old burpees, whatever. And then your main training is climbing hills. So Croagh, you know, people, complete strangers tease me when I go up Croagh because I'm very small, and I'll go with a big pack. Because the only way to be fit for a mountain is to go on a mountain and climb mountains. You know what I mean? It's the only way, because you can jog and you can do online fitness, but you have to just get out on the hills, and it doesn't take long, but that is the way I train. Because I have been on the occasional call out where I wasn't fit, you know, when you're suddenly in the middle of a situation and you're trying to catch up with your fellow members. So I try not to leave myself unfit, because you pay for it. You pay for it on the team, you know, if you're dragging yourself, you know. So that's the only real challenge. It's, you know, I teach a lot of mountain rescue teams, and they're just such amazing people. They're full of life and very good, decent, giving people from all walks of life. So I highly recommend joining a team if you have that kind of interest.
Lovely. Okay, another question from Terence Parker. Have you come across COVID in the mountains yet?
No, Terence. I think we all have to be sensible, and with us as a team, we will wear masks and we put a mask on a patient. But in my experience with COVID, and I've worked, as I said, in the COVID ward for the last 4 months, people catch COVID mainly indoors rather than outside. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't socially distance outdoors. You should, especially if people are exercising and there's a lot of air coming out. Well, then you should stay away from them.
Yeah.
Even if you're jogging behind somebody, go to the right or the left of them so that their vapor is not, you're not running into their breath. But having said that, a lot of what I'm reading is suggesting that people are mainly contracting COVID indoors. So no, we haven't come across it in the mountains. No, but now it's early, and I only know, aside from my experience, what you guys know and what we all read. It's all, every week we hear something new. So the next 4 months will tell us a lot more. But no, we haven't come across anything. I think you're pretty safe. Going outside, cycling, but just once again, don't cycle immediately in somebody's wake. Don't run immediately in somebody's wake. Don't climb directly behind somebody. Just be to the right or left of them, so you don't get their breath in your face, just in case.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Okay, now Flora Smith, what are the most frustrating scenarios you come across in mountain rescue? And then the second part of the question, and I hope that Catherine Lucy is buying the drinks tonight.
She did. She bought me this. Who was that person?
Flora Smith.
Flora.
Yeah.
Flora. Hello. I'll tell Catherine you. What was the most frustrating thing? Well, people think that we get frustrated by picking all these, on social media, there's a lot of, why were those people on the mountain, and why they're probably not wearing the right gear. And mountain rescue people don't like to talk like that about people, because people genuinely have accidents, regardless of what they're wearing. We've had lots of people who have accidents with lovely boots and everything on. So people have a misconception that everybody who gets rescued from the hill, has done something wrong to get there. And that's just not fair. So we never get involved in all that social media stuff. Having said that, there is the very occasional time where somebody has been really silly and we've had to rescue them. It only really irritates us when we've rescued somebody, we've gone down, and then we've had to go up a second time, which sometimes happens on Reek Sunday. We're finished, we've been there for 12 hours. We one particular patient that we ended up rescuing, who will definitely remain nameless, we asked him, we saw how slow he was. I was working in the medical tent. I said, please let us escort you down. He was an elderly man. No. So we all finished, disbanded the tent, everything comes down. Everything is, now we're all wet, ready to go home. And of course, he wasn't able to make his way down. So we all had to go up again. That doesn't happen very often though. So we don't really get, people are genuinely, they just fall, especially Croagh where we work a lot. They just, it's really eroded. So it's not frustrating. We just, whatever happens, we'll just go up and get people. And that's fine, so we try not to judge. It doesn't matter if, non-mountain people, they don't realize that the runners that they're wearing are going to make things treacherous. It's not their fault. It's just lack of experience, so so that's the way it is. So it's not as frustrating as people think. People think we're always going, oh, those people, why did they do that? It's not really like that. Not at all. I mean, you might say, oh, pity I have to leave that glass of Chardonnay on the table.
Yeah, and come back to it 12 hours later. Another question from Donald Carroll. What do you do for a release from stressful environments?
Well, I read.
So everyone, Marie has problems with internet, and we just decided to call the end. And thank you so much for attending. It was lovely to have you all. I hope you enjoyed it.